Hey everybody, thanks for joining us on the Extra Point Show this week. Hope you're all doing good. We have had the draft come and go, and we're just gonna briefly get into that. And if you're not already, make sure that you like and subscribe for weekly NFL content.
Yes,
So
the much anticipated draft is finally over, so we don't have to suffer through any more mock drafts.
No more mock
Thank
drafts
God.
for at least probably a month, and then they all begin again. They're like, oh,
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
maybe next year the Saints will take a quarterback.
Yeah, I
Maybe.
never can get into those mock drafts, man. It's like if you want
Yeah.
to do one like a week before, all right, fair enough.
Yeah.
But like it's one of those things, man. The draft is just you never know what's going to happen. Just
Right.
wait till it happens, man.
Right.
Just see what
And
happens.
even with most of the mock drafts that I saw had Aiden Hutchinson, the pass rusher out of Michigan, going first to the Jaguars. I even thought he'd go there, but they ended up getting Trayvon Walker out of Georgia instead. He ended up having a really good season on the Georgia defensive line, the all-star Georgia defensive line that we'll get into more here. But he had 37 tackles, 7.5 tackles for a loss, and 6 sacks. I mean, the Jags would end up trading back into the first round and get in at number 27, and they'd send the first pick of the second round, number 33, and 106, which was the first pick of the fourth round, and first pick of the sixth round to the Bucks. And with that 27th selection, they selected Utah linebacker Devin Lloyd, who obviously was a player that was linked to the Commanders as being, a position that they could address. So
Yeah.
he would have been around at 16, but of course we'll get into more what the Commanders did here in just a little. Yeah, last year obviously the Jaguars had the first overall pick as well. They went Trevor Lawrence on offense. This year they go defense, and also trade into the first round and go defense again with Devin Lloyd. Obviously the Jags, as we mentioned on earlier shows, kind of went on a spending spree this year in free agency. So, yeah, you would expect them to win more than the 2 games this upcoming season.
Well, to go defensive line, then they must be comfortable enough with their offensive line with Trevor Lawrence to go ahead and go that heavy on defense. 2 defensive picks in the first round.
Yeah. I mean, you would think that they've made some moves. That they just, signed big tackle Cam Robinson to a 3-year extension. I think we might have that mentioned later in the show. If not, we'll just mention it now. But yeah, with him going number 1, that would leave Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan, also an edge rusher, to go number 2 to the Detroit Lions. So Michigan guy staying in Michigan, in the state of Michigan, to play.
That's really cool for him. I mean, I imagine that's got to be really, really awesome.
Yeah.
I
imagine
knows that he's a Lions fan, but like to play for a team that that is in the same area you live in, like even if you're not a fan, that would be awesome, I think.
Yeah, and we're going to talk more about that here because there's another guy that kind of gets to do the same thing later here in the first round as well. But yeah, big pickup for Motor City Dan Campbell. He seems like he's going to be a really good player. A lot of projections had him going first overall in the draft. Kind of a theme with Aiden Hutchinson going number 2, as the first 5 players selected were defensive players. Number 3 was Derek Stingley, cornerback to the Texans. Number 4, the Jets got Sauce Gardner, another corner. So the top 2 corners off the board. The first offensive player taken was at 6 overall. It was North Carolina State offensive tackle. It's on the offensive line. Ike Ekwonu. He was taken by the Panthers. And I remember telling you I thought the Panthers were going to go with Kenny Pickett here. They did not. And that's why mock drafts don't mean a damn thing. So,
Yep.
yeah. So, Ekwonu.
That's his name, Icky Ekwonu.
Yeah. Ike Ekwonu.
Wow.
Yeah, out of North Carolina
name.
State. He's going to be protecting Sam Darnold or whoever the quarterback is in Carolina. Now, the Giants would end up having 2 first-round picks. They would have the 5th and the 7th pick, and they would address both of their lines. At 5, they would take Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon, who's on the defensive line. And then at 7, they would take offensive tackle Evan Neal. So addressing their offensive and defensive lines at those 2 spots. So Giants did a good job improving both sides of the trenches. Obviously, Daniel Jones going into potentially his last year. I don't know if you heard about this, but the Giants did not pick up his 5th-year option. So this could be Daniel Jones' last year in New York if he doesn't play well.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they probably should move on from him. He had a lot of potential, but as the years have gone on, it seems like, at least in New York, he's not going to be too successful.
I think I'll always know Daniel Jones for that one play where he was just just running free.
We're
just
running
running
and he
free.
just falls.
Yeah.
I remember he said in the press conference, he's like, when you're running too hard and like you're pushing your legs too hard and they just kind of give out. It's like, that's basically what happened. It's like, well, man, you were like 20 yards.
He was like 20 yards. So yeah, it's like,
why would you be running that hard at that point? Like,
just
that you lose balance.
Just like do the Dion and just Heisman in.
Yeah, but I will never forget that play. That was, I don't think anybody will forget.
I don't think. That's like Mark Sanchez will always be linked to the butt fumble, where he runs into the back of his offensive lineman and like fumbles the ball. So there's just some plays that you just don't want to be known for. Ben will always be, in my mind, known for the snap over the head in the end zone. First play of the, playoff game against the Browns like 2 or 3 seasons ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So following number 7 with the Giants, the Falcons selected wide receiver Drake London.
Yep.
And taking him as the first receiver off the board.
Yep.
Even an ankle fracture didn't prevent him from being selected in the top 10.
Right.
And the highest drafted wideout by Atlanta since Julio Jones in 2011.
And
him
that
leaving
worked out.
Yes, it did. And him going that early obviously takes him off the board for a team like Washington.
Right.
I know, there was talks about him and Chris Olave being taken. And when their opportunity did come at 11, out of nowhere, I didn't really know what to expect, but a trade with New Orleans was announced.
Yeah, they traded back.
They moved up to 11, and we went back to 16.
Right.
And then with the 11th pick, though, they take the Buckeyes receiver Chris Olave.
Right, who was somebody that Ron was interested in. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know a lot of fans, too. I mean, a friend of mine who's a fan is a Buckeyes fan. I know he definitely wanted him. Mm-hmm. So I know there was definitely people disappointed by that. But it seems like an overall smart move because they did receive, the 3rd round pick and the 5th round pick.
Get that back
as
that. Recouping that from the Carson Wentz trade.
Right. And then they still did draft a receiver, not one I don't think anyone was necessarily thinking would go in the 1st round, but Jahan Dotson. And after seeing the little bit about him that I have, he does seem like a solid pick. We got those 2 other rounds.
Yeah.
So
I've heard a lot of people say that he might have the best hands in the whole draft. So, I mean, this kid's always carrying a football with him.
Yeah. When he showed up to the Commanders, like, the first time, like, at the FedEx Field, he had a football in his hand, like, coming out of the car.
Yeah, I saw the video when he met Ron, and he gets out of his car with the football. So,
yeah. It's
probably why he never drops one.
Right? He's just like, I keep it with me, like, almost all the time, man.
Yeah, I heard him say it's his baby. So, I mean, he's not coming out of a nowhere program. I mean, Penn State, they weren't a good team. I mean, he had a garbage quarterback throwing him balls, and, he had a good season.
And he still didn't drop. I don't think he dropped a single pass. I believe that's what I saw. Is he had not a single drop pass. So
so I mean, I think he's going to be a good pickup. And, I mean, obviously, as we mentioned, Terry needed some help. And after Drake London went at 8, receivers started to fly off the board. I mean, so Washington going back to 16, they also got 98 and 120 from the Saints. But yeah, I mean, Garrett Wilson would end up being drafted just a few minutes after, or actually, Garrett Wilson would go at 10, and Olave went at 11. So Ohio State receiver teammates going back to back. So I think that's maybe the second time teammates have been drafted back to back like that. I remember Wilson got drafted, and then like it's almost like he knew because he got off the stage and he waited, and then like Olave, got drafted next, and he like hugged him afterwards. So that was kind of a cool moment.
Is that how you say his name? Is it Olave?
Olave,
is that what it is?
Yeah.
All right, I think I said it wrong earlier.
It's all good.
I was not sure.
No worries. And the Ravens would go defense at 14, taking who many people believed was the best overall player in the draft at Kyle Hamilton, the safety at 14. And it wasn't so much that, but what would happen a few moments later that would catch, Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson's attention when it was announced that the Ravens had traded Marquise Hollywood Brown to the Arizona Cardinals. And Lamar would let out a simple three-letter tweet, WTF. And clearly he wasn't happy.
Brown, obviously not.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting about this is the move reunites Brown with his former college teammate in Kyler Murray. They played together at Oklahoma. And Baltimore traded Marquise Brown and a third-round pick, number 100 overall, to the Cardinals for the 23rd pick. And then the Ravens added a fourth-round pick by trading back to 25, and then they'd select an Iowa center, Tyler Linderbaum. So in the first round, the Ravens get a center and Kyle Hamilton. So address offensive line and the defensive backfield. And obviously traded away their top receiver. So in that, Marquise Brown joining a receiving corps in Arizona, headlined by DeAndre Hopkins. But
well, not for the first 6 games, though.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to mention, too, due to his recent suspension. And we'll get more into that in a second. But, yeah, they've got DeAndre Hopkins. They've got A.J. Green, Rondale Moore. And, he had his best season, Brown did, for Baltimore last year, catching 91 passes. He had his first 1,000-yard season with 1,008 yards and 6 touchdowns. And, like you said, even bigger for the Cardinals now that they know they will have to play the first 6 games without DeAndre Hopkins due to testing positive for a banned substance, which apparently happened last November.
Yeah, that's going to hurt them.
Yeah. Apparently, from what it says here is he produced a positive test for a result of a prohibited substance plus a diuretic or masking agent attempt to substitute, dilute, or adulterate a specimen, attempt to manipulate a test result. So whatever that means, maybe he tried to dilute something or
Well, what it basically means is that if you have something in your urine or whatever that you're trying to mask, you take drink a lot of water or something to dilute it down. That way it doesn't show up. Which if there's I didn't know about that part. If there is that evidence as well, and his statement saying, oh, in my 10-year career I've never tested positive, I'm confused and shocked what happened. Well, man, if you were attempted to mask it and it's in there, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe you at that point.
Yeah. I mean, he was also quoted as saying, I'm very mindful of what I put in my body and always have taken a holistic approach. So I'm working with my team to investigate how this could have happened. But even as careful as I have been, clearly I wasn't careful enough. For that, I apologize to Cardinals fans, my teammates, and the entire Cardinals organization. I never want to let my team down. I fully intend to get to the bottom of this. As soon as I have more information, I will share it. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see if he shares any more information.
Exactly. If he shares some more information, then okay. Well, then. Yeah. But at this point, it doesn't exactly look good for him. But I guess it's only a 6-game suspension. It could be a lot worse.
I hope that one of the first 6 games is against the Niners. Right. So we can at least, play one of those games without him. But, yeah, I mean, Kyler and Marquise were electric together in college at Oklahoma. So that's obviously not good for the NFC West.
Yeah, that is not good. You already got enough to deal with the Rams. I mean, the Seahawks aren't going to be anything to worry about, but the Rams and the Cardinals.
Probably not, but we'll talk more about the Seahawks here in a second. So, Marquise wasn't the only receiver with the last name Brown traded. The Eagles received A.J. Brown in a trade with the Titans. So the Titans traded A.J. Brown to the Eagles in exchange for the 18th overall pick and the 101st pick in the draft. And the Titans proceeded to use that 18th overall pick to select presumably his replacement, Arkansas receiver Treylon Burks. Now, Treylon Burks, a lot of people wanted the Niners to get him, but, you know, he went at 18. There's no way we were going to get him. But he's probably the player in the draft most like Deebo. They used him as the wildcat. They used him to do a little quarterback. You know, they used him out of the backfield. He ran a lot of jet sweeps. He's a big physical receiver. So presumably he's going to replace him. And, you know, the Titans also got Robert Woods from the Rams this offseason. So making some changes there. He was one of the 4 receivers that was looking for a new contract, as well as Deebo, Terry, and DK Metcalf as well. And he was the first of the 4 to get one because in addition to being traded, he also signed a new contract worth reportedly $100 million on a 4-year deal. So again, that $25 million with $57 million guaranteed. And the move will pair A.J. Brown with 2021 first round pick of the Eagles, Devonta Smith. So now Jalen Hurts has a more talented tandem at receiver than he's had in his previous 2 seasons being there. So obviously not good for you guys either.
Yeah, I was like,
NFC
great.
East.
Yeah, not great news, but yeah, good for them, I guess. I mean, obviously they're going to improve their team, which they should. So
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Titans obviously didn't want to trade him, but at the end they determined, an agreement couldn't be met.
At that cost, that was the better move for them, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not obviously, but we'll see how it plays out with the picks.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what ends up happening.
They saved a lot of cap space, I imagine, so it's going to allow them to bolster the rest of their team.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, for NFC East rivals.
Yeah. Now, this next move, this is, this was kind of historic in a way. Wasn't a record, but it's something that's kind of been in place for the last 25 seasons or so. So, first quarterback off the board was Kenny Pickett, who I thought would be the first quarterback selected. However, he didn't go until 20th overall. Now, the University of Pittsburgh star, this is why we said it's a, kind of a recurring theme, will stay in Pittsburgh. He played in college there, right on the other side of the little sports complex there. So now he's going to stay in Pittsburgh with the Steelers, potentially, taking over that legacy of Big Ben that they had for, 18 years in Pittsburgh. Him being selected 20th overall in the first round. He's only the second first round quarterback ever taken out of Pittsburgh. The first one was Hall of Famer Dan Marino, who was taken 27th overall in 1983. And the 20th overall selection marks this one hurts. The latest first round quarterback has been taken in a draft since 1997, when the San Francisco 49ers drafted Jim Druckenmiller with the 26th overall pick. And he'll be expected to come. And Druckenmiller was fucking terrible. I mean, he did not last. Like, he actually got on the field, which was better than Gio ever did. But, he was trash. The thing about Gio, too, is Gio was the second round pick. Druckenmiller was the first. So, obviously expect a little bit more out of the first round pick.
Yeah.
But he's expected to compete with Mitchell Trubisky and Mason Rudolph for the starting quarterback job in Pittsburgh. And surprisingly, Pickett wasn't the only quarterback selected by the Steelers, as they also used their 7th round selection, number 241 overall, on South Dakota State's Chris Oladokun. So, I mean, practice squad guy, maybe. I mean, maybe a camp body. You got 4 quarterbacks now. Maybe they like something about him. Who knows? But
yeah,
Steelers double dipping on the quarterback. And then you got Green Bay, who swerved most draft experts, who had them taking a receiver with, they had 2 first-round picks, 22 and 28, and they didn't. Instead, they went defense, selecting 2 Georgia players. So we're going to talk about why that's relevant in a second, but they took linebacker Quay Walker at 22.
Maybe because the G looks identical.
Yeah. That's, they just have to change the colors of the G from the black and red to the green and yellow. Yeah, exactly.
It's literally the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then they took defensive tackle Devontae Wyatt at 28. Now they did trade up to take, and this was a guy I wanted the Niners to look at, but I remember we talked about him because he was college teammates with Trey. But they did trade up early in the second round to take Christian Watson at 34 overall. So they did get their receiver. So just in the second round. And the Packers have had plenty of second round receivers that have worked out before. So Jordy Nelson comes to mind. Donald Driver, I think, was the second round receiver. So I think they'll be just fine. Besides, they added Sammy Watkins and made a few other moves. Now, that Georgia defense, this is why we wanted to talk about it. They led that Georgia team. I mean, the defense was the heart and soul of that team. I mean, they led them to a national championship win over Nick Saban and the feared Alabama team. You know how good Alabama is. I mean, Alabama seems like they're winning the national title every year. Georgia made history when they had 5 defensive players selected in the first round of the draft, which set a record for most defensive players selected in the first round out of one school in the common draft era, which is since 1967. Yeah, the Georgia Bulldogs broke the previous record of 4, which was held by Miami in 2004 and Florida State in 2006. There was also a record on receivers, as there were a record 6 receivers taken in the first 20 picks. So there was really a fire sale on receivers early on. So like I said, once Drake London won at 8, they started flying off the board just like nothing.
Yeah.
As well as a first round record, 9 trades. Another interesting NFL stat about the draft, a record 10 teams, which is almost a third of the league, did not have a first round selection, including the Niners.
Man, that's crazy. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is why this segment's called the draft by the numbers, bud. We're getting into it. We're talking about all these records here. So 10 teams without a first round pick. Many teams like the Eagles, the Packers, the Jets, the Giants had multiple picks, including the Jets having 3. So the Jets obviously went Sauce Gardner. They went receiver with Garrett Wilson, and then they went edge rusher. So Salah doing pretty good. Salah having a pretty good draft. Yeah. Gearing up for, year number 2. And I always hope the Jets have a better season than the Giants too, as those New York teams are kind of competing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And let's see here. Yeah, okay. And the strangest first round pick, literally, was at 29th overall, the Patriots, who had the 21st pick, but they traded back to 29. Typical Belichick move, get value, add some more picks. Mm-hmm. But he drafts Tennessee Chattanooga offensive lineman Cole Strange. Now, I watched some film on this guy, and every tape that I saw, he was getting walked back like he was on roller skates. Just following the defensive lineman. I was like, now, far be it from me to ever question Bill, because I think he's earned the reputation to just be like, all right, if Bill drafts this guy, then obviously, Bill drafted Tom Brady when nobody else was drafting Tom Brady. You know what I'm saying? So it's maybe, and in defense,
but that was only one time. That was only one time though that he drafted Tom Brady. It's not
he also drafted Mac Jones, who nobody wanted. Remember everybody, Mac Jones had the terrible pro day?
Yeah.
And then like Bill's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to draft Mac Jones. And Mac Jones was the best of all the rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah, he was. That's true.
I mean, if Cole Strange sucks, fine. But like I said, I'm holding out to see because I'm not going to question it until I actually see this kid play. Now, here's what Bill said about it, because obviously he was questioned about the move. I'm gonna say it in like typical Belichick. Felt like that was a good guy, a guy that fits well. Cole fits well into our team and our system. Obviously, think he's a good player.
That was actually pretty good.
Yeah, thanks.
That was damn close to him.
Yeah, so Belichickian move.
Yeah, I feel like that was a good. I think that guy fits well. Cole fits well into our team and our system, and obviously, I think he's a good player. He's a pretty athletic guy with good size and smart. So he does a lot of things. Has a lot of good tools to work with. He's got a long way to go, like every player does. Comes into the NFL, but look forward to working with him.
No quarterbacks taken in the second round, which I don't know if that's any type of a record, but they'd start to go again in the third, with the Falcons taking Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati at 74, and Malik Willis, who a lot of people thought would be the first quarterback taken. He didn't go till 86 with the Titans. Now, Additionally, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just saying, it's surprising how high Malik Willis ended up going, considering, other than Kenny Pickett, who I assumed would go before him, I figured Malik Willis would be the next one to go.
Yeah, I thought so.
And a lot lower than 86.
Yeah, and he comes from a super generic offense at Liberty. But and obviously he's not ready to play day one. But still, you'd think that just based on intangibles alone, he might be taken late first round, early second round. But going in, everybody was telling everybody what a terrible quarterback class it was going to be, and how.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. And then after those two guys went, Carolina felt like they had to make their move, and they traded up to 94 overall, and they drafted Matt Corral out of Ole Miss. So potentially coming in to compete with Sam Darnold and maybe take his job. So we'll have to see. Obviously, like we said, they took Ike Ekwonu at 6, where I thought they might go quarterback, but they still got their quarterback in the third round. And one other record to mention, at the end of the 3-day draft, Georgia would set yet another record when they would have 15 players selected in a 7-round draft, most by any school in history. So pretty insane. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of records for just one draft.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a very exciting draft by any means.
Yeah,
really.
A draft lacking a lot of star power, but definitely more deep than anything, especially at positions like edge rusher and receiver. So
yeah, and the lack of these where it seems like there's just these clear great players. It seems like maybe the later rounds there might be some more hidden gems in there because of that.
Yeah. You would think. All it takes a lot of these times for a guy to go in a later round is just a rough pro day. If a guy comes out and just doesn't have his best day and just doesn't run a good 40, that could drop a guy from a first round projection to a third. So, who knows? Yeah. So, getting into some other stuff here. The NFL has, obviously we've got the schedule announcement coming out here on the 12th, where we'll know exactly who's playing who on which exact days. But the NFL has already
come out yet. I thought I saw something about the Washington schedule. Is that not for sure then?
You know the opponents, but you don't know the dates they're going to play who. So that's what you showed me earlier. You showed me who they're going to play, but not when they're going to play. But the international games have been announced. So typically there's the London games, and there's 3 games in London this year, including Let's see here. I've got it up right here. Or the London games here. Oh, here we go. Okay, so there's going to be Vikings Saints in London on October 2nd. There's going to be Giants Packers on October 9th in London. And then the third London game, Denver Broncos, Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I don't know if you know about this, but the Jaguars are super over in London.
Yeah, remember this? Didn't they recently play in London? Like,
The Jaguars are like the most popular team in London. For some reason, they're
which is really weird.
loved. Yeah, so call it the London Jaguars. But yeah, they're over there now. Interestingly enough, there's two other international games. The next one I want to mention is the Seattle Seahawks playing the Buccaneers on November 13th. Now, this game is going to take place in Allianz Arena in the arena for football club Bayern Munich in Munich, Germany. Now, this will be the first ever NFL game ever played in Germany, and it will air on the NFL Network. And what's interesting about this is actually set to make Tom Brady the first ever quarterback to start in 4 different countries, being the United States, London, Mexico, and now Germany. So Tom Brady, international man of mystery.
Tom setting more records, man.
Yeah, exactly. And the 5th and final international game I want to mention, this one close to home. The Arizona Cardinals will play the 49ers in Mexico City on November 21st. So the Niners posted a lot of stuff on their social media with like Kittle. Kittle came to the Niners stadium wearing like some Mexican like lucha libre type mask or something, just being like the clown that he is. So everybody's embracing that. So
that's crazy. That's a lot of international games. I feel like 5. I mean, that's a lot.
The NFL is trying to expand its reach.
It's going to be some weird start times, man. There's going to be
a lot of them are 9:30 a.m.
Yeah, other than the Niners game, I don't really care all that much. But that's I wonder when that one's going to be on. Yeah,
I want to see Tom annihilate the Seahawks in Germany. I mean,
it's 9:30 a.m. on the East Coast, so it'd be 6:30 a.m. for you.
That's fine. I mean, I'll wake up that early for football. Not a lot of things I'll wake up that early for, but that's one of them.
Yeah, it'd be the weirdest time to watch a game. But hey, if it's coming on, then I'd be like, all right, well, waking up to football, I guess.
Yeah. So after the draft had come and passed, Seattle was one of the surprising teams that did not draft a quarterback. Now, Pete Carroll was questioned by the media about this, and he was quoted as saying, "We're always competing. That's all we know how to do around here. We're always checking out everything that's possible." And he told Rich Eisen that during Saturday's draft coverage. And then he also said, "Right now, really excited about seeing these guys for the first time, and we'll see what happens in the time to come. We're always competing. We're always looking." And he was further pressed by the media and asked if he expects to go from looking to adding at any point in the near future. And Pete said, "Nothing's going to change that quick. We're really happy with the guys we've got to see them battle, and we'll see what happens. You never know what's going on down the road. We're always looking." So
that's a really, really generic sounding response. And also given the guys that they do have, like, that they can't really.
How many times did he say that they're competing in that?
Yeah, it's like you can't, and we're really happy with them. Come on, you cannot be really happy with Drew Lock, Geno Smith, and Jacob Eason.
Yeah, Pete's.
I mean, come on.
Pete's the only one. If he's happy, geez.
Right? Yeah, I mean, I don't understand that at all. Like that, just that whole answer sounds like he's just evading the entire thing. Like it's just like coach bullshit speak.
Yeah. Now, the only thing that I can think is if Pete is really that delusional, because Seattle does have a lot of good players around quarterback. So if he thinks that they can just, like beef up everything else and win with mediocre quarterback play, maybe. But you're playing in the West, man. This isn't like AFC South football where you can get by with like Davis Mills winning you some games with some good defense. That's not how this works here. Like, I mean, every team in the NFC West is loaded, man. And now they've got, like I said, they've got DK if they can re-sign him. They've got Tyler Lockett at receiver. They just traded for Noah Fant in the Russell trade. So they've got 2 good receivers. They've got a good tight end. Seattle drafted 2 new offensive tackles. So, to protect whoever the quarterback is. So they've got weapons around. But yeah, I mean, and they've been linked to a lot of guys. I mean, Seattle's been linked to potentially the Kaepernick, speculation. They've been linked to Baker. They've been linked to potentially one of the few teams that might still be in the Jimmy sweepstakes. Although at this point, I think we can close the book on that. I think Jimmy's staying. I mean, here we are in May, and Jimmy's still here, so he's gonna be in San Francisco next year. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't exactly know Seattle's cap situation, but I agree with you. I don't know how you can legit be confident in that. I mean,
yeah, like I said, that's coach speak. That's just bullshit coach speak. That's just what they say. He's not fucking happy with that. Come on.
Yeah.
But when the media presses you, you got to put on that, blah, 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 and that's that quote just completely reads like something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's got to say what he's got to say, and you take it with a grain of salt.
It's true. That is true. Yeah, I'd agree with you on that, because I mean, I don't think Seattle fans are excited. I mean, I don't know how
I wouldn't be either.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, speaking of quarterback headlines, we mentioned Malik Willis getting drafted. Now,
yeah, Ryan
incumbent
Tannehill
starter,
kind of an asshole, I guess. I mean, not really. He's in the right to not, but
yeah. I mean, and if you read the whole quote, I mean, and we'll talk about it and give thoughts here on if we think that this is a good take or not in a second. But first we'll go through what happens. So Malik Willis gets drafted 86 overall by the Titans, and incumbent starter Ryan Tannehill obviously gets questioned about it because he's going to field questions. Jimmy had to field these questions all last year when Trey got drafted. How do you feel? How's this? Yeah, it's part of the job. So this is what Tannehill said. These are the comments made about mentoring rookie quarterback Malik Willis. We're competing against each other. We're watching the same tape. We're doing the same drills. I don't think it's my job to mentor him. But if he learns from me along the way, then that's a great thing. So obviously people took that, and from what they took from there was, I don't think it's my job to mentor him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that was like the headline that I remember seeing.
Yeah.
It's like makes him come across like he's kind of a dick.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I mean, the whole quote kind of, it makes sense. They are competing, and it's not his job. He's getting paid to his job, and I mean, what he says is basically, other than maybe if you're on your way out, then it'd be a good thing for you to maybe try and mentor someone coming in. But he's trying to keep his job, obviously. So he has there's nothing to help him to go and do that.
Right. And obviously there's been this is a tale as old as time with, the quarter. The biggest one that comes to mind is the Packers when they had Brett, and then they draft Aaron. And Brett was like probably the truest example of like, I'm not showing him shit. It's like, all right. And Aaron sat on the bench for 3 years, and Aaron got his time. And Aaron got his money. So I think Aaron's made more money than Brett ever made, but obviously the contracts have changed.
Yeah.
Although Brett got that Wrangler money. Remember when he was on the Wrangler jeans commercials? Wrangler.
I do.
So, but then he clarified kind of a little bit with this quote. He said, I wasn't informed of that beforehand, but it's the same thing with AJ, right? The team is going to do the best thing that they think is in the best interest of the team. I have no problems with Malik. We're looking to add talent and guys that can help us. We'll add him to the room and go from there. So Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
when,
I mean,
when really
I
clarified.
I think,
Go ahead.
yeah, when it's clarified and you hear the whole thing, it makes sense, and he's trying to keep his job. I mean, I think a situation more like with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, like Brett Favre was older and he was on his way out. At that point, I mean, maybe he wanted to keep playing longer, who knows? But, when it's that kind of situation, I feel like maybe teach the guy a little bit. But,
Yeah.
Ryan Tannehill obviously is trying to keep his job for several more years, I assume. So,
Yeah. Ryan Tannehill doesn't know if he's going to get another shot after he's fizzled out of Miami and Tennessee.
yeah, right. So he's not happy about another quarterback
Yeah.
coming in, I'm sure.
Yeah, so Tannehill got a lot of negative heat for this around the league, including from many current and former players that had comments. I don't remember what player it was, but somebody was like, I hope he comes in and takes your job. And I was like, damn. So, and then I remember, did you see the Kurt Warner comment? Kurt Warner, hero of the day, coming out, and he's like, I don't like seeing stuff like that. He's like, if there's young quarterbacks out there that can't get mentored, he's like, DM me, and I'll mentor you. So Kurt, not all heroes wear capes. Kurt Warner, quarterback mentor.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's not playing for an NFL team right now, and it's
No,
not his backup quarterback that
Kurt's
he has
got
to
nothing
teach.
better to do right now with his time.
So there's a bit of a difference there, I would say.
Yeah. And then they asked him about the A.J. Brown trade after he lost his top two receivers. They lost Julio Jones, obviously, earlier in the offseason. And he said, I was shocked when I first found out. I'm like, this isn't real. This isn't happening. It's a rumor. And then I talked to AJ, and I found out it was real. I slept terrible that night and kept thinking it was just a bad dream. But that's where we're
Jeez.
at.
Oh, man.
So could you
Not-
imagine?
Not a good
like,
situation.
Could you
in
imagine
Tennessee.
48 hours for Ryan Tannehill? He's like, okay, so day one of the draft, they trade away A.J. Brown to the Eagles. And he's like, oh, man, this sucks. But he's like, okay, well, we've got Robert Woods, who drafted a rookie. He's like, maybe I'll develop with these guys. Then day two of the draft, round 3 rolls around, and then they draft your replacement. It's a rough weekend for,
It's like,
for the
man,
Tannehill family.
shit. It's like
Yeah.
no reason, no wonder he said like it's not my job.
It's not my job.
Like that's what he
yeah.
really meant to
Yeah.
say. Is it like that?
Yeah.
He's like, it's not my fucking job, dude. I'm trying to keep my job, man.
The best.
The hell you talking about?
The best competition line ever was a kicking battle between Roberto Agoyo and Nick Folk in 2016, I believe. And Agoyo, the Buccaneers wasted a second round pick on a kicker, and I'm a kicker, so like for me, to say wasted because this guy was terrible, but Nick Folk, that he was like the incumbent Buccaneers kicker, and they asked him about it. And obviously, Nick Folk's still kicking in the league with the Patriots, and Roberto Aguayo's been out of the league for years now. And they're like, "Oh, how do you feel about this?" Asking Nick Folk, and he's like, "It's competition." He's like, "I got a family to feed. He's not going to take food off my table." And I was like, "That's all right." But every team's only got one kicker, so
Yeah.
it's different. And let's see here. And following the draft, after no trade had been made, the Bears elected to release quarterback and former Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles. Chicago general manager Ryan Poles and the Bears deciding to allow Foles to try to find a new team rather than continue to search for a trade partner. And Foles would have been a $10.6 million cap hit this season. His pre-June 1st release comes with a cap savings of about $3 million, but a dead cap number of $7.6 million. And that's per Sport Track. So he will now have an opportunity to sign with teams still looking for a quarterback, whether that be probably we're talking a backup role, I would say, for Nick Foles. I mean, he's been an occasional starter, but definitely more known as being a guy that can come in off the bench, as he did with the Eagles, and, get you get you some wins.
Yeah, I'm sure his career's not over. There's going to definitely
No.
be a team that is going to need a quarterback sometime this season. So I'm sure we'll see him again.
Yeah. I mean, he'll be waiting around. So you figure, I mean, maybe Seattle makes a move on him. But Pete likes the guys.
That was one team, the main team I kind of was thinking actually maybe them, but among others. One thing that's going to take some getting used to hearing is 3-time All-Pro safety Tyrann Mathieu signing a 3-year, $33 million contract with the Saints.
Yep.
So bye Kansas City.
Yep. He's going back home. He played. He's from Louisiana, and he played at LSU. So he's a 29-year-old player entering his 10th season, but still playing well. Last year with the Chiefs, he was healthy, played in 16 games, or started 16 games, should say, had 76 tackles, a sack, 3 picks. So the Saints add him to, pretty talented defense. I think that last year the reason that they were competitive, especially after Jameis went down, was because they had a good defense. I remember a lot of those games they were winning were like 16-10, really sloppy games, but defense was holding it together as they were winning with, I think, like Trevor Siemian and Ian Book and Taysom Hill. Although Taysom Hill's a tight end now, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, but back where he belongs not as a quarterback. He's a special player, man. He's a special player. You don't use him all the time. That went terribly.
Yeah. I mean, he's a talent. We're gonna see what he can do for them at that position. But
yeah, he might be good as a tight end.
It could be. I think they signed Andy Dalton as the backup. Yeah, they did. Yeah, so it's Jameis and then Andy Dalton as the number 2.
Andy Dalton just rolling around the league.
Andy Dalton has stolen money from a lot of NFL clubs for a lot of years. I mean, and he's gotten away with it, and he does it again. Now, the best available running back, in my opinion, that was left in free agency is back with the Broncos, signing a 1-year, $5 million deal. He's returning to Denver for a 3rd season after his first 5 seasons were with the Chargers. So spent his entire career in the AFC West. Last year, he had 918 yards and 8 rushing touchdowns on 203 carries. And he's also going to get the opportunity, and this has been happening a lot, dude. This has been a growing theme. Obviously, we talked about Marquise Brown and Kyler Murray being reunited, and a lot of these guys like Jalen Waddle and Tua, former teammates, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. But interestingly enough, Russell Wilson, who was the Broncos' new quarterback, and Melvin Gordon were teammates at Wisconsin for a year. So he's going to be rejoining his former college teammate. So we'll see what happens. And he's part of the Broncos' 2-headed running back attack with Javonte Williams. So they have both of those guys, and we'll have to see. We'll have to see what they can do. Obviously, Denver's an improved team, especially with Russell Wilson in there.
Yeah, again, that's another thing I'll take getting used to.
Yeah. Yeah, he's there. He's definitely there. And then Chargers made a couple moves on the defensive side of the ball this week when they signed former Patriot and Dolphins linebacker Kyle Van Noy. He was part of a Patriots team that reached the Super Bowl in 3 consecutive seasons, 2016, 17, and 18, winning 2 of the 3. And he turned that success into a 4-year, $51 million free agency deal that he signed with the Dolphins in 2020. But he lasted in Miami just 1 year before being released, and then he went back to the Patriots last year. So Van Noy's 31 years old. He's moving west to the Chargers, and obviously the Chargers were a team that were right on the verge of the playoffs. It was, last game of the season, whoever won that game against the Raiders was getting in the playoffs. So they were right there, right on the cusp of being a playoff team. Now he's going to join a defense that also has Khalil Mack. As you remember, they got Khalil Mack in the offseason, and then they've also got Joey Bosa. So pretty talented. They also got J.C. Jackson, the cornerback from the Patriots. And they managed to sign defensive back and slot corner Bryce Callahan, who's a former Denver Bronco as well. He spent the last 2 years with the Broncos after the first 4 years in Chicago. And he was ranked number 54 on the NFL.com's list of 101 best free agents. So I think they got both of those guys on the same day. So another corner and a linebacker. So Chargers making 2 good moves on defense. And yeah, I mean, looking to compete in that AFC West. I think any game between these AFC West teams, Raiders, Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos is going to be a good game this next season because all those teams have really loaded up.
Yeah, it's a lot like the NFC West used to be. Well, unless Seattle continues to maybe be good, but both the West divisions seem to have pretty stacked teams at this point, other than maybe Seattle in the NFC.
Yeah.
And then Denver, we got to see how it goes. But I mean, assuming they have Russell now, you expect them to be at least like a 9-win team, 10-win team.
Oh yeah, I'd expect so. I would think so. And we'll just have to see how they respond to the new coaching because they have a new head coach there in Nathaniel Hackett. So we'll see how he does.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's Commanders Countdown. The draft is finally over. We don't have to look at any more mock drafts. We can actually see what we actually did.
Yep.
Initially, I know everyone wanted us to take, between a couple of different players, Chris Olave being one of probably the main ones at 11.
Right.
But out of the blue, they decided to trade with New Orleans and move up to 16. And then, ironically, with the 11th pick, New Orleans did select Chris Olave.
Right.
So following that, with our first pick at 16, we took Penn State wide receiver Jahan Dotson, which I know a lot of people, especially on Facebook, have been very critical of this draft and not happy with it. But given, we received 2 picks for the trade back to 16 from New Orleans. Mm-hmm. I think it was 98 and 144, a third and a fifth. So, the value there, and we got a very good receiver. I don't know if anyone's looked at any tape of Jahan Dotson. I didn't until this. I don't get too much into players in the draft until the season starts. But I'm going to check him out after we draft him. Mm-hmm. And he has some of the best hands I've ever seen, and possibly the best hands in the draft. So I don't see how there's
anything.
Yeah, he hasn't. I don't think he has a single drop pass at all in college, like not even one. Which I don't even understand how that's possible. Quarterback's got to throw a bad pass at some point that you're not going to catch.
Yeah, I mean, let me see here.
I'm not sure. I feel like I saw that, but
well, okay. So here we go. So he had the lowest drop rate.
Lowest drop rate
of 3.5%. So I don't think it was none, but it was just really low. And then he was 4th in contested catch rate at 81.3%, which is really good.
Yeah.
And actually, Ron, I don't know if you heard this, but Ron said that he he reminds him of Deshaun Jackson a little bit. And then he also reminds him of Steve Smith, who Ron, of course, had in Carolina, just a little bit smaller in stature, but he makes big plays. So I mean that's definitely good.
And speaking of stature, it's ironic now that basically our entire receiver core, or at least the main ones, are all under 6 feet or 6 feet or under. I think Terry might be 6 feet. I know Curtis Samuel's 5'11", and I think Jahan Dotson's also
5'11". I'm looking at it right here. Yeah, 5'11", 178.
They're all basically the same height, but they're all fast. So I mean, And then we have Logan Thomas healthy. We got this that 6'7" tight end. I don't know if he's going to be anything good, but I know it'd be more ideal maybe to have one tall receiver, but I feel like having 3 players like that are all kind of the same and can hit anywhere on the field might turn out to be really good.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely going to give more weapons, and you had to give something. I mean, especially because you don't know what you're going to get out of Curtis Samuel yet. So I think it was a good move. And,
I remember he did say some things on social media about feeling more like himself and stuff like that, which is great if it's the truth, and he actually can Yeah, so if he's actually back healthy, we got Logan Thomas and Chase Young's back, and it's not like a repeat of second half of last season.
Yeah,
Injuries and COVID.
Absolutely, yeah. And then they went with the next draft pick. They got Fedarian Mathis, the Alabama defensive tackle, at 47 overall.
Yeah, and this was another pick that was also projected to go at a later round. The first two picks that we've gotten, that's what has been said about them. And even that guy, Fedarian Mathis, when he answered the phone, said, "Oh, I didn't expect to go until..."
Yeah, that wasn't a good look.
Which is not classy at all.
You never want to say that. Yeah,
it's like, okay, well,
yeah.
All right. Like, I wasn't quite as happy with that one as the first one. I was like, all right, well,
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see how it plays out. But at least with the following pick at 98, we got another running back to help bolster the running back room even further and take some of the load off of, Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I thought that was a good pick as well. Because they can, I think the plan is to use them. Ron said, like, when he had Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams in Carolina, they were a really proficient running back attack. Back when they had, the two of them and Cam Newton, Carolina was running all over everybody. So they plan to use Brian Robinson in that role, kind of sub him in with Antonio Gibson and give them both looks. They also addressed safety because obviously with the loss of Landon Collins, although one thing I will mention is there has been, I think you were going to probably mention the same thing. Go ahead.
Oh, well, yeah, there's talks that Landon Collins might want to come back.
Mutual interest, right.
Which I was kind of sad to see him go because once he switched positions, man, he was a beast.
He was lights out, yeah.
It was like, where has this guy been, like, making all this money? And he's like, oh, I don't want to change positions. And he changed positions and it's just great. And it's like,
yeah.
All right,
well, that also
if
speaks,
he comes back
positively to the culture of the team, like that these guys want to come back, like with JD McKissick first and then.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously Ron is building a culture, whether obviously a lot of people are frustrated because it didn't happen overnight, but these things sometimes they take 3 years. It's a process.
And so many people always want to say, like, oh, nobody would want to come to Washington. Nobody wants to stay in Washington. That's never.
Yeah, I don't buy that.
There's just so many negative fans out there that always say that, and here's instances where that's definitely not the case.
Yeah, so you figure Percy Butler. Last thing on him, you figure he'll probably be a depth signing. Probably play a lot on special teams initially, because they have Bobby McCain at safety and also Cameron Carroll. So they've got good safeties, but he'll probably sub in there from time to time. Then in the 5th round,
with from the Saints, the 5th round we picked up from the Saints.
Yep. Washington did get a quarterback who I've seen a lot of people think that he's going to win the number 2 job over Heineke. I don't know if those are just Heineke haters.
They must be Heineke haters. I don't see how that's possible, but
Yeah.
Maybe. If he's better than Heineke, then sweet, but I just don't see that being the case.
Yeah. I mean, if he deserves to win the job, then by all means, Taylor's going into next season making $1.5 million. So they're Howell, he's a little bit bigger than Heineke, like an inch taller. I think he's 6 foot, 218. He was a highly touted prospect. He really set North Carolina state records at a high school. And let's see here. Also, the other thing I wanted to mention, college teammates with De'Ami Brown, the Commanders receiver. So those two guys have a lot of familiarity with each other. But yeah, I mean, he's been brought on. Obviously, did they have? I'm trying to think who their third string would have been, because obviously Kyle Allen went to
he was
Houston, and then
is that where
Jordan
he is now?
And then Jordan Tiamu is in the USFL playing for the Tampa Bay Bandits right now. So I don't think they had a third stringer. So I think Sam Howell comes in as your third stringer, and potentially if he's lights out, potential to win the backup job. But
Right.
I'm sure Taylor will have something to say about that. I don't think he's going away without a fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think Taylor would at least be able to keep the backup job. I really like the idea of him as a backup. So, I mean, unless Sam Howell can show something, better than Heineke, which I imagine his arm is probably stronger. Heineke does not have the best arm, but as a backup, you can tailor things to a backup at that point. Like they had to do the entire season with him, but still had some success, and his ability to move around and all that. But it was an interesting pick to see them go with a quarterback because I wasn't sure if they would go with one at all. But given they got the pick compensation for trading, I feel like they're just kind of just going out on a limb and saying, "Well, he's there. Let's go ahead."
And I was going to say probably having him available in the 5th round because quarterbacks really didn't start going until the 3rd.
Yeah.
Besides Kenny Pickett, I mean, you probably couldn't pass him up. You're like, oh, well, he's there. And like I said, he was highly touted. He was projected to go higher. People thought Sam Howell could go as high as the 2nd or 3rd round. And I remember a long time ago, he was actually catching buzz as maybe one of the draft's best quarterbacks. But we'll see. I mean, the one thing that's interesting about him is he does have a big arm. So essentially, if something did happen to Wentz in a game, he could essentially come in and run that vertical offense, which that was kind of the knock on. Obviously, Heineke, I've heard the nonsense of the noodle arm. I don't think he has a noodle arm.
He doesn't have a noodle arm, but
he doesn't have the best deep ball in the game. He doesn't have the best deep ball velocity. So, I mean, it is nice to get somebody that can at least come in and run that same offense.
Yeah, like Heineke can get the ball far down the field. It's just
he can fit stuff in some windows. Yeah,
it's not going to get there the same way. It's in the air too long, and therefore that makes it dangerous. And it's not.
I remember one
accurate.
Game he threaded it, but I think it might have been the Raiders game. He threaded it right between two
like
defenders'
two defenders. It was like that was probably
Yeah.
one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in football. Like
So I mean,
that is not something you see a lot.
He doesn't have velocity, but he has touch, and touch.
Well, in the short range passes, I feel like he has some velocity, at least more.
For sure.
But
I mean, he's an NFL quarterback. I mean, Jesus,
yeah.
the man's a professional athlete.
I personally hope to see him stick around as the backup. I enjoy watching him when he's out on the field. It's not like, when you had Nick Mullins and he came out, you just want to just take the gun and just, all right, well, I'm done. Like at least with a backup like him,
Who did Nick Mullins go to? I'm trying to remember who got him. He was last year with Cleveland, but somebody else got him. Ooh,
somebody else is on the down. While you're looking that up, I'm just going to mention the last 3 picks. There was 3 other late round picks. 5th round, Cole Turner, and 7th rounders, Christian Holmes and Chris Paul. The one thing I know about them, or at least one of them, Cole Turner is 6'7", and I guess he was a quarterback at one point in college. So that'll be interesting to see him.
So is Logan
6'7".
Thomas. I mean, maybe you're going.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think Logan Thomas is quite. I think he's like 6'4", maybe. Maybe he's like, no, he's 6'6",
he's not as tall,
actually,
but a former quarterback transitioning to tight end.
You know what? I think he's 6'6". I gotta look that up real
6'6".
quick.
Yeah, I'm looking at
6'6",
240.
Okay. So this guy's about the same height. He's not super tall still pretty tall for a tight end, but
out of the University of Nevada, he had 117 catches, 1,300 yards, and 20 touchdowns. So, wow!
Last year as a senior, a tight end,
he had 10 touchdown catches, which was the most in the Mountain West Conference. So,
sweet.
He's a good receiving threat. I mean, obviously, last year, I remember after Logan Thomas got hurt, you guys had Ricky Seals-Jones, and then he got hurt. But Seals-Jones wasn't as good as Logan Thomas, obviously.
No, not nearly as good.
But then
he dropped numerous passes.
Yeah. And then they had John Bates, who came on strong. But John Bates is also a good blocker. I think Cole Thomas gives you another
John Bates
good receiving
is a much
tight end.
better. Hopefully, because you're right. John Bates is a lot more of a blocking tight end, but he does actually seem.
But he catches the ball well. Yeah, I mean he's a pleasant surprise.
When needed, he can do both. Like he actually seemed to have better hands than Ricky Seals-Jones did. So
I think they've improved the tight end position with the 3 guys that they have,
which we definitely needed, and we needed Logan Thomas healthy so bad. Him getting hurt was just terrible. But hopefully this guy, he can be a breakout star for us. That'd be nice to have 2 great tight ends, but a late round pick that just becomes a great team. Everyone loves that.
I'm smiling because Nick Mullins went to the Eagles.
Oh, that's right. It wasn't in the NFC East.
Oh man, if Jalen goes down, oh man.
That's good. That's good news. Hell yes.
Oh man, he is terrible. He is the worst of all time, dude. Oh my god. Watching him.
Oh, man.
And then yeah, Chris Paul, not to be confused with Phoenix Sun and NBA legend Chris Paul. This is a different Chris Paul. He was the second guy. There were two guys drafted, or no, three guys drafted, I think, that had NBA player names. Obviously, him and cornerback Kobe Bryant out of Cincinnati were the two.
That one I definitely saw that one. That threw me off. I was like, what?
Yeah, but Chris Paul is a guard out of Tulsa, so addressing the offensive line, late in the draft, and then they also took Oklahoma State cornerback Christian Holmes, as drafted 240th overall. So more than likely a guy that'll make the practice squad or maybe make the team.
I would say that about any of the bottom three. You never really know. Bottom four, even Sam Howell might not be great.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And of these guys, Sam Howell was actually the first of the draft class to sign his first quarterback of the 2022 draft class to sign his rookie deal. And the Commanders have also signed Cole Turner, Christian Holmes, and Chris Paul. So they've already gotten 4 of their draft picks under contract within like 1 week of the draft. So you always like to see that. You don't want anybody holding out. So
yeah,
definitely a good start.
Yeah, so overall, not like the most exciting draft. There's obviously draft grades you can throw out, which I've seen anything from an A to a D.
Right.
On different, whatever site you look on might have a different opinion.
Right.
For me, it's kind of just, you take it as it is. We did gain some more players out of trading back to add to the roster. That's usually seen as a good move. So, I'm happy with it, but I'm not going to be unhappy or happy with it really until I see these people play in the actual season. Or training camp and pre, when you actually get to see people in action and you really see how things are developing. At that point, I have more of a strong opinion about it. But at this point, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with the positions we got, and I look forward to seeing how they perform. Especially Jahan Dotson. Obviously the first round pick, you always want to see how they perform. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think that'll be the most telling thing. Obviously getting these guys out on the field and seeing how they look. But I think that as far as the draft goes, they definitely addressed quite a few positions of need. Obviously, receiver was something that we mentioned that they could definitely address, and they did. So you like to see them do that. I figure Fedarian Mathis probably will. They lost Tim Settle at defensive tackle, so he probably comes in and fills the need at that position.
We need him to hopefully step up and be good at that point. So he's one I'm gonna be watching a bit actually. Yeah, especially with.
I love the name. I'm glad you guys got a guy with a fun name. Like we got Diamador Lenore. I'm glad you guys got Fedarian Mathis. Like good. Like I remember I texted you as soon as you guys got him, and I was like. Love the name. I was like, solid pick. I'd have drafted him. I'd have been like, we can get this guy with that name. Call him.
It's like, I don't care where he's from. That's great. Like
the enthusiasm. And he's from Bama, so that doesn't hurt. Guy played for Nick Saban, who gets you pro ready.
Yep.
And then just two other things. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say in news, another receiver news. We signed wide receiver Alex Erickson. He's more of a punt return guy, hopefully to try and replace DeAndre Carter, who we unfortunately lost. After spending his first 5 years with the Bengals, he signed with the Panthers in 2021. He played in all 17 games. He had 3 receptions for 55 yards, along with 23 punt returns for 204 yards.
Yep. Yeah, so obviously probably not somebody that's going to catch a ton of passes. Probably just brought in either to fill your offseason 90-man roster or to be your new punt returner. Obviously, they lost DeAndre Carter, so he could end up filling that role. But, so he's coming back over. And then they made another signing. They signed another former Panther, also former Steeler, Trey Turner, for a 1-year, $3 million deal. Turner is entering his 9th NFL season. He entered the league as the 92nd overall pick in the 2014 draft for the Panthers. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler, made the Pro Bowl for 5 consecutive seasons from 2015 to 2019, and has appeared in 110 career regular season games with 85 starts. So a guy that's played a lot. And obviously with the loss of Brandon Scherf and Eric Flowers at guard, we talked about them getting Andrew Norwell, but who was going to play the other guard? And maybe now we know that's Trey Turner. And at a clip of $3 million for a player that Ron knows and has been reliable and a former Pro Bowler as recent as 2 seasons ago, not a bad cost.
No, definitely not. I'm happy with that because we needed someone to fill that role.
Yeah, I mean, last season he was with the Steelers, and he started all 17 games, so definitely a reliable player. I know that was the thing that Washington fans were mad about because they didn't address the offensive line until Chris Paul, who they took later in the draft, but maybe they had a plan all along. And I know that Ron has also mentioned they're still looking at linebackers, so they're not out at potentially adding a free agent linebacker at this point. And we'll put up a list of the best available remaining free agent linebackers that Washington may potentially try to court. So we'll follow that situation, let you know who they sign. They also who was the other guy? The like Cole Kelly, like the 6. Did you see they signed like some 6'7" quarterback?
No, I thought that was Cole Turner. I thought he was a quarterback in college.
I think this is a different guy. Hold on.
Is it a different guy? I don't know.
Yeah. Hold on.
That when you say the name, it like sounds familiar, but
yeah, right here, bud.
No, he was an undrafted free agent. I think that we drafted,
exactly. He wasn't drafted. Yeah, 6'7", 260 out of Southeast Louisiana.
Yeah,
Kid's
he's
like
one
huge.
of there's a list of undrafted that we got as well.
I just wanted to mention him as well because he could be an intriguing prospect. It's like that guy is phenomenally sized.
Usually the too tall quarterbacks don't really go that well in the NFL.
Yeah,
but
no, they usually convert to tight end.
Yeah, so
we'll see.
Yeah, it's probably just a camp body. But
yeah, probably.
That's pretty much all we got for you after the draft. If any news comes up in the coming weeks, we'll be sure to cover it.
Absolutely.
But thanks for joining us, and tune in next time.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Hey, what's going on, faithful? Thanks for joining us this week on the Niners News Update. Today, we are going to be recapping the draft as well as talking about the most recent Niner news. So the draft, obviously, biggest thing to note here is the lack of the first round pick. To properly evaluate our draft, we won't really know until we get to see Trey Lance play probably at least 1 full season, maybe 2, to know exactly how trading away our next several first round picks is going to work out for us. But we did have a pick in the second round, number 61 overall. And there was a lot of speculation on how we could go. Maybe receiver, maybe offensive line, maybe edge rusher. We did go edge rusher. And the more I thought about it, the more this move makes sense, as we're planning on getting rid of D Ford, as we've talked about on the show before. So we did need another edge rusher opposite of Bosa. So we got USC edge rusher Drake Jackson, who was one of the guys of many that we mentioned that the Niners could be looking at, and they did in fact go with him. He is 6'2", 254 pounds. So the Niners draft Drake Jackson to add to that, defensive line where he'll be playing alongside Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, and Javon Kinlaw, we can assume. We can figure Kinlaw's probably going to be back from his knee injury. So definitely a player that can make the pretty impressive defense even better. So for their next pick, they kind of surprised some people by going with a running back. by going with Tyrion Davis-Price out of LSU. Obviously, he's quite a dynamic player and expected to be a really good addition for us. But, I mean, with Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson, definitely didn't expect us to go with a running back in the third round.
You know what it was? It's because his name was Tyrion, like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, the first thing that I heard when we drafted him, that was what I thought of. I was like, oh, okay, is that like Game of Thrones character? Because that's pretty cool. So I was pretty excited about that. But yeah, I mean, he obviously, anybody that watches Niners games knows that every season that Kyle has been Niners coach, we've run the ball extremely well, but we've gone through probably 3 or 4 different running backs. So definitely good to have depth at that position. And, he seemed like a good pickup. So really happy to bring him in. Receiver was another position that people talked about. We could address, especially with the unknown of the Deebo situation. So we addressed a receiver at 105 overall when we took SMU receiver Danny Gray.
Yeah, I mean, I think Deebo's likely going to be staying, I think, after the way things look now. But
absolutely. And we're going to get more to that in just a second with the latest on that, because I'm in agreement. It looks like things have drastically improved. But Danny Gray, another receiver under 6 foot, 5'11", 186. So really, really similar in size to Jahan Dotson, actually. I think Jahan Dotson, we said, was 5'11", 178. Mm-hmm. So about 8 pounds heavier, but about the same size. So he's a receiver under 6 foot, 5'11", 186, runs a 4.3 40 out of SMU. So expected to be another playmaker for the 49ers in what's expected to be more of a vertical passing game with Trey Lance this upcoming season. He's definitely a player that can go up and get contested throws as well. So good to see us add another receiver. That was something that, was always listed as a position of need that we could address, as was offensive line, which is how we went with our 134th pick when we took University of Texas San Antonio offensive tackle Spencer Burford, 134th overall. In the 5th round, they took a corner finally by drafting Toledo cornerback Samuel Womack, who ran a 4.39 40 and led his team in interceptions in 2021. So he is, he was on a lot of preseason watch lists as one of the top corners at that position. Obviously playing at a smaller school like Toledo, probably didn't get as much attention as a Sauce Gardner or Derek Stingley. But we knew the Niners were going to take a corner at some point in the draft. They didn't do it until the 5th round, but, obviously, I think we're okay at corner, especially with, Charvarius Ward. And we're going to talk about another guy that we signed here in a second, that we added to the cornerback room here. We also took another offensive lineman in, I'm probably going to butcher this, but Nick Zakelj.
That'd be my guess. That'd be my guess.
Yeah.
Zakelj.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
As we find out more on him, we'll bring that to you. But then we went defensive line at 220 overall by getting Kalia Davis, who I can only assume is a depth signing. Obviously, we played a large portion of last season without Javon Kinlaw, and now we don't have DJ Jones anymore. So adding him to our defensive line as a depth player, probably a good move. The Niners would get another corner by getting a teammate of Jahan Dotson, cornerback Tariq Castro Fields out of Penn State at 221 overall. And then with the final pick in the draft in the 7th round, the Niners Mr. Irrelevant, the Niners making a surprising move to take a quarterback I really didn't expect them to take a quarterback, especially
Yeah.
seeing as we have 3 quarterbacks on the roster right now with Jimmy, Trey, and Nate Sudfeld. So, but again, potentially a camp body, and it wouldn't be unheard of to carry a quarterback on the practice squad. But yeah, Brock Purdy, interesting to see what will become of him. He was elated. I don't know if you saw the Purdy household, but he was elated to be
Really?
Mr. Irrelevant.
You know what's funny? I saw the ceremony where like they hold up the jersey that literally
Yeah.
says Mr. And I'm like, really? They do that? Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't see the celebration, but I remember seeing that part, and I was like, oh my god, they hold up the jersey with it on and everything. Like, oh man, I know I've seen it before, but just seeing it again, I'm like, oh my god.
I mean, he started 13 games as a senior at Iowa State. And he completed, this was good for 5th in the nation, 71.7% of his passes. So very accurate passer. So yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. I mean, obviously, I don't have great expectations, especially if we're going to keep Jimmy. But maybe he stays around on the practice squad.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he can find a spot for himself. But yeah, as far as the draft goes, like I said, to be able to grade the draft is kind of inconclusive without knowing what's going to happen with Trey Lance. But we filled a lot of needs. I mean, like I said, Drake Jackson at edge rusher, I figure, is going to step in for the soon-to-be-departed D Ford. That just makes sense. We got another receiver, with the unknown of the Deebo situation. Plus, it doesn't hurt to have another receiver anyway. I mean, you can never have too many good receivers, and Danny Gray seems like he's good. We addressed 2 offensive linemen, 2 corners. So we filled a lot of positions of need. So, I mean, I'm happy with it. But like you said in the Commanders segment, really it's hard to know about these guys until you actually see them get on the field against NFL competition and see what they're made of.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't really matter how players rated. I mean, other than like I said before, like the 3, maybe a couple players that are almost for sure going to be good in the NFL. Outside of that, it's
there's
really
always those
until you
guys
see them
coming in
play.
like an Andrew Luck or like a Peyton Manning or like a Myles Garrett that you just know that it's just gonna work out. Nick Bosa, another one that people just knew was
Chase
gonna be
Young.
good. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like they're clearly, you can just tell, like regardless of playing in the NFL yet or not.
Yeah.
It's almost a guaranteed bet, but those are rare. Most of the time that's not how the draft works. You could, your 6th round pick could come out and be one of your best players in your team come a year or two.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
Kittle is a 5th round pick.
that's a perfect
yeah.
example. Perfect example. Because Kittle is a damn beast. So yeah.
I remember one time. I remember one time they were asking Kyle Shanahan in an interview. They're like, "Well, would you think about taking a tight end? Like in the 2nd round?" This was after we already had Kittle, and he's like, "I don't know if I could really justify taking one in the 2nd round when I got Kittle in the 5th." Kyle just getting the ultimate value. Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, we also addressed, and this is why, probably not a huge deal. I'm sure John and Kyle already knew that they were going to make this move, but we re-signed him. I'm happy with this move. I know he's been banged up, but we got Jason Verrett back. I love Jason Verrett. Now, this guy,
He's been very solid, I feel like, for the Niners. Like, he's never been amazing, but he's always been pretty solid.
Yeah. And I don't think I can find a player that comes to mind that's had a worse injury history than Jason Verrett. I mean, he missed the entire 2018 season. He signed with us in 2019, and he's only played in 15 games with the Niners, including 13 starts in 2020. He started the opening game last year against the Lions. He had 5 tackles. I think you probably remember we lost Raheem and Jason Verrett both in the Lions game in the opener last year for the season, and that was a bummer.
I remember the times that he was in the game though, that he was good. Like he looked, he made good plays. Like
absolutely.
It wasn't a lot, but it's so. I imagine
of,
that's why they're re-signing him, because if he's getting healthy, then they see what he can do. Then give him a 1-year chance.
Yeah, and it's a relatively team-friendly contract. They're not paying him a lot of money. And I mean, he's 30 years old. But I mean, this is a guy that's been a Pro Bowler before when he's been healthy. And, you know, like I said, he started 13 games in 2020. And he ended up having 60 tackles and 2 interceptions. So yeah, I mean, he definitely played well for us when he's been out there. He was playing well in the Lions game before he got injured last year, but he's had a couple of torn ACLs. And
I can't believe he's torn his ACL twice, man.
Yeah, he's had
makes
knee
him
injuries.
that's a risky player.
He's had ankle injuries. Yeah, I know, but I mean, obviously Kyle and John like him a lot, and he was a great like when we went into last season with him and Emmanuel Mosley and K'Wan Williams. I was very confident in our corner group, but Jason Verrett went down game 1, and that forced Ambry Thomas and Diamador Lenore, our rookies, into a role that they probably weren't ready for. They had to start playing week 1. So, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's potential for it to be high risk, low risk, high reward is what I meant to say. Because obviously you're not paying him a lot of money. If he gets injured again, then, you know, obviously we got Charvarius Ward. We drafted Samuel Womack and Tariq Castro. What was it? What's his name? Tariq Castro. He's got, it was Tariq Castro Fields. So we got 2 new corners in the draft. We've got Diamador Lenore. We've got Ambry Thomas. So we've got good players there. But if he works out and he stays healthy, I think he could be a starter. And then I figure probably Emmanuel Mosley and Charvarius Ward are our starters. I don't know if that would mean Jason Verrett would go to the slot because we don't have K'Wan Williams anymore. But, I mean, having too many good corners would be a welcome sight because last year our secondary was our weakness on defense. We got burned a lot. As you probably
that's
remember.
probably why they picked up 2 corners in the draft, you know, to make sure that
I would say so.
That shit doesn't happen again.
I would definitely say so. Now that was the only addition we made was Jason Verrett. Also, Elijah Mitchell, in other news, told reporters last week that he recently had a cleanup procedure on his knee. Obviously, last year he was in and out of the lineup a lot with knee injuries. He'd, you know, miss a game here, miss a game there. Obviously, it was something that ailed him all year. Yeah. But he said he should be good to go by the 2022 campaign. You'd love to see that. Obviously, I'm excited for the 2-headed Niner rushing attack of Tyrion Davis-Price and Elijah Mitchell. So hopefully they can tear it up. Especially with Trey Lance back there. We're going to have potentially a 3-headed running attack. And Juice. You got the Juice back there, too. Potential to be really.
And that's more of a power back there, but obviously he's a.
I mean, he'll.
Back, but,
you give him the ball sometimes, he'll get 8 or 9 yards. He'll just bowl through some people. Yeah, and then obviously, this goes without question. The Niners had picked up the 5th-year option on pass rusher Nick Bosa, which I mean that goes without saying. You got to make that move.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any doubt. So that will mean that Bosa will be under contract for at least the next 2 seasons.
Good.
Yeah. So that gives them time to work out a long-term contract. It definitely doesn't seem because him and Deebo are both due for long-term deals, but Bosa definitely doesn't seem to be as urging it as pressingly. Like Bosa knows it's going to get done. Because I think Bosa knows what he means to this team. This team's not going to go out and play football without Nick Bosa. I mean, I think he's like at this point our defensive heart and soul, other than Fred Warner. But yeah, so then John Lynch was also asked about Deebo after the draft came and went, and Deebo, was still a Niner. No trade happened, and John Lynch said that he doesn't see the Niners trading Deebo Samuel. That he's just too good of a player. And he was quoted as saying, "I can't ever imagine wanting to move on from Deebo. You put yourself through the exercises of even though we don't have a first-round pick, You have to be thorough in this process and prepare for everything. And as you go through and do that, he's just too good of a player. So it sounds like the Niners kind of did I think they said they fielded some requests. Kyle even said that, but nothing remotely close to what was going to make them jump.
Mm-hmm.
Probably would have had to be insane. Because they only traded A.J. Brown for an 18 and a 101, I think. And Deebo's worth a lot more than that. Maybe call me biased, but I think he's at least worth 2 first-rounders and maybe a third at the very least. But
or maybe a first and a second.
Yeah, something like that.
Man, that sounds like a lot. I agree with you though on how good he is. I feel where you're coming from.
Tyreek got traded for 5 draft
firsts.
picks. I could see Deebo traded for 3.
Yeah, but those were all late round
first.
draft picks, weren't they?
No, one was the first. One was like a 3rd and 4th. I don't.
Okay.
It was a lot of picks.
That's Tyreek Hill though. Deebo is good. But
No, I'm not saying that he would net what Tyreek Hill would necessarily, because Tyreek's more of a an actual receiver. Deebo's a specialty player.
Yeah, he's a Swiss Army knife, and Tyreek is just damn cheetah.
But also, it has the potential to the way they use him to get injured more. So that's always something that you've got to factor in as well, because obviously he takes, he took 59 carries out of the backfield, which is by far more than, Cordero Patterson for Atlanta is the only other receiver I think that got used kind of like that. And not with the success that Deebo had.
Yeah, I think he was the only one to have success like that. He was amazing last season. For sure.
So, other news in that, Deebo, and this is relevant, especially in today's game of social media, but Deebo has refollowed the 49ers on Instagram. So it's a great sign. It's a small sign, but it's a great sign. Deebo's happy. I guess they had this thing during the draft where he came out in front of a bunch of Niners fans. It wasn't at the draft, but I think it was probably something in California. But Deebo came out on the stage and everybody was cheering. And they're like, Deebo, do you have anything to say to the faithful? And he's like, I love y'all. And then so it's like, it seems like things are getting better. So good. We just need to give Deebo his money. Let's just get him some money. Get the man what he deserves. Maybe make a compromise with him. Maybe we don't have to use him 60 times a season out of the backfield. Maybe, if we just need a play, maybe we can bust it out. Just the Deebo special, I think is what we were calling it last year. Bust out the Deebo special when you need it. We don't need to use it fucking 15 times a game. Yeah, some of those games late in the season, we were barely throwing to him. He'd have 1 catch and 10 carries.
Yeah.
I was like, we still have Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson. We have running backs. They're good too. They're good running backs. They're just.
I'm just like, no, just keep getting it to Deebo. Just come on, just Deebo.
Why don't you go ahead and throw one for us, Deebo, too? Why don't you go ahead and throw one for us too? Show us the. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what Tyrion Davis Price can do. I love the name. Another name that I'm excited about.
Same.
But yeah, we'll see if he goes all Game of Thrones on somebody's ass. And kid runs a 4.40, so more speed. Love the speed. We'll be back next week to bring you guys, anything that happens between now and then, and talk about any roster moves, anything exciting. Obviously, we're getting into that part of the season now where we're going to be starting training camps and OTAs and all of the off-season conditioning programs. So definitely let you know how those position battles are looking and how these rookies look throughout the off-season. But we're now about 3 months away from preseason football, so getting closer.
Getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
And that's going to do it this week for the Extra Point Show. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you're not already, make sure that you like and subscribe and follow us on all of the social media platforms. And check out our other video clips, like the Niners News Update.
And the Commanders Countdown.
That's right. See you next week, everybody.